Darien Lake is a huge 982-acre park near Buffalo, New York that has been owned by Six Flags on two separate occasions. I've known about this place for almost 20 years, but I finally was able to visit last summer. Today, I'll be looking back at my visit to Darien Lake on Friday, July 13th, 2018. We got to the park right around opening, a few minutes late, but the parking lot was not all that full. The park's lease rights were acquired by Six Flags a few months before we got there, and although we were not able to use our Six Flags season passes, we took advantage of a deal where Six Flags pass holders could buy a ticket for $20 a piece, so that was definitely a good deal. As soon as we got into the park, we headed straight for Ride of Steel, the park's Intamin mega coaster and a mirror image of Superman Ride of Steel at Six Flags America. It was a station wait, but it was only running one train. I didn't mind too much because from that wide open station, I could get a ton of good pictures. We only had to wait a couple trains to get on shortly after opening, so we got 4 laps before the line started to build up. This is a really fun coaster and the best in the park, but it's kind of weak for what it is. The layout is weird with those helices and the straight section, but it still has decent airtime, and those wide open trains with the T-bars are still some of the best out there. We really enjoyed this coaster and decided after 4 rides to start exploring the rest of the park. The next closest coaster was Predator, a Din Corporation wooden coaster from 1990. Anytime anyone mentions a Din Woody from the early 90s, is it ever a good thing? I actually enjoyed the first drop and the first hill, but from there it went horribly wrong, and this is legitimately one of the roughest coasters I've ever ridden. 1 ride was enough. We moved on to the Boomerang, which has a beautiful location next to both bodies of water. Darien Lake, which is in the corner of the park and is surrounded by the hotel and cabins, and Fun Lake, which is in the middle of the park and you have to walk around it to get to the Ferris wheel and moto coaster. We stupidly took the long way to the moto coaster.
Idiot!
And this actually had a decent line. Up to this point we had pretty much walked on everything despite the 1 train ops, but we waited probably 15 minutes and got the front row, and this Zamperla launch coaster was surprisingly intense at the beginning. The first launch and the twist to the top caught me off guard. The rest of the ride was fun, but it did not maintain its intensity. So next up was the classic aero looper, Viper. This is one of the better aero loopers, especially considering its age, and has a pretty interesting layout without much roughness after the first drop. So we were ready to check out the new for 2018 Gerstlauer Eurofighter Tantrum, which had by far the longest line of the day, which amounted to maybe 20 minutes. We had ridden Iron Shark less than a month before this, so we knew what to expect. And this was a really fun ride that packs a lot into its extremely short layout. We saved the best for last, the beloved SLC Mind Eraser. And what can I say? It was bad, probably one of the worst SLCs I'd ridden, but it was the last credit we needed, and we got it, and we concluded our coaster riding day at the park. From our first ride on Ride of Steel to our last ride on Mind Eraser, it took us a little more than 2.5 hours to get through the coasters. We spent some time walking around the park and getting pictures and 360 video, and we rode the giant wheel, which was touted as the world's largest Ferris wheel at the 1982 World's Fair in Knoxville. This thing is a monster, standing 165 feet tall and sitting in the middle of the park at the foot of Fun Lake, and provided some excellent photo ops of all the coasters in the park. By 2:15, we had done everything we wanted to do, so we took off to Fantasy Island, which is about 30 minutes away. This was a little park with a very solid CCI called Silver Comet, and also had a spinning wild mouse, which was pretty crazy, hence the name Crazy Mouse. Not as wild as Raging Cajun at Six Flags America, but better than the other carnival spinning mouse coasters I've ridden. We got 1 ride on Crazy Mouse, 3 rides on Silver Comet, and we didn't even see Max's Doggy Dog coaster, but even if we did, I doubt we would have ridden it. I wouldn't call this park sketchy, but it had a carnival type feel other than Silver Comet. Here are my overall impressions of Darien Lake. I really enjoyed my time here, and I think this park has a lot of potential. Ride of Steel is a really good star of the park, but Tantrum does do a lot to add to the coaster lineup. It has some good but not great supporting coasters. I would say it's a good foundation to expand on. This park is big, and it feels like a legit major park, which is the complete opposite impression of Six Flags' other new 2018 acquisition, Frontier City. The park is not quite there yet, but I hope that Six Flags expresses interest in building this place up, because I think it could be a park that the chain could be proud of. My number 1 suggestion for this park would be to RMC Predator. This would add another amazing coaster to their lineup, and it would be pretty cheap for Six Flags to do. And we know how much Six Flags loves to add RMC hybrids to their parks. The final coaster count: 4 on Ride of Steel and 1 ride on everything else: Predator, Boomerang, Moto Coaster, Viper, Tantrum, and Mindy Racer. The biggest surprise was how much I actually enjoyed the park. I thought it would have a small park feel, but it was the complete opposite. The biggest disappointment was how terrible Predator was. I was expecting a good ride that had some roughness in it, but it was absolutely terrible. Also, every coaster except for Tantrum was running 1 train, which didn't really affect me because the crowds were so light, but for a Friday in the middle of the summer, it was kind of disturbing how they were content with 1 train ops. Let me know what you think of Darien Lake, and what you think the future under Six Flags ownership holds for this park. Also be sure to like this video, subscribe if you're new here, and I will see you guys all later.